They nodded towards the schoolyard bachelor action as Sam handed Megan her soy chai latte and Lizzie her flat white. Jesus, she's going to file an injunction or something. Sam plonked down on the end of the bench.
Is Dave married?
Megan asked.
Yep.
Lizzie said confidently.
And I am extremely proud of myself for knowing that. How the hell do you know that? His kid was Zara's buddy last year.
Lizzie said.
She insisted on telling me every detail about his life. Ah.
Which one's his kid? Sam asked.
Jack. Which Jack?
Asked Megan. Jack in 12C, Sam said. Megan rolled her eyes.
There are 4 Jacks in 12C?
No, that's 12D. There's only 3 Jacks in 12C.
Oh, Jack B from 12D.
Megan asked, squinting as she tried to picture Dave's son. 12C.
Yeah, but which one?
I think it's Jack D, Sam said.
In 12C?
Jack D from 12C?
Oh, my God.
Lizzie threw up her hands.
I'm going to stab you both in the face if you don't shut the fuck up.
Welcome to the Good Reading Magazine podcast, sponsored by Pantera Press. Good Reading is a monthly magazine dedicated to books and reading and aims to help readers discover their next favourite book. You can find out more about the books discussed on today's podcast at goodreadingmagazine.com.au.
Hello and welcome back to the Good Reading Podcast. I'm Max Lewis and today we're joined by Fiona Harris and Mike McLeish talking about their new book, The Drop-Off. The Drop-Off started as a web series depicting the relatable hijinks of parents Lizzie, played by Fiona, Sam, played by Mike, and Megan as they bonded together after dropping off their kids at school. The duo have now expanded the web series with a brand new book which sees the 3 parents stepping out of their comfort zones after a tragedy rocks the school community. Fiona and Mike, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
So The Drop-Off had quite a bit of success as a short-form web series. What made you want to adapt that to a book?
Well, originally there was a woman by the name of Angela Meyer who used to work at Echo Publishing, and she reached out to Fiona with the idea. So as much as Fiona's always wanted to write adult fiction novels, we never really connected the dots to think that something we wrote and created as a web series could translate into a novel. But as soon as we got that email, we realised, we'd gotten to know these characters in this world so well, and in the ways that we were restricted making the web series, suddenly, the opportunities that presented themselves creatively approaching this story and these people with a novel were really exciting right off the bat.
Going back to the original web series, how did the idea of that come about?
That was now 5 years ago. When Mike and I have always written our own stuff and that we've performed either in comedy festivals, theatre or whatever. And we were trying to think of an idea for something to do that would be really cheap, that we could just get a few of our mates involved in and just make something for fun. And I was literally sitting at Drop-Off one day and looking around the playground and suddenly just thought, there's a lot of material here.
And I received an email, and I think it was something like 8:53 in the morning, and Fiona was on school drop-off duty that day, and she sent me an email that just said show idea, The Drop-Off, and it was instantly so evocative, and there was a wealth of material on hand, and like Fiona said as well, simple and cheap to make, one location, 4 people sitting on a bench shooting the breeze.
The weather was never our friend.
Once we went into the second season that we got some Screen Australia funding for, we could sort of expand out a bit more and get off the bench and get a bit more action into it. But that's how the original idea came about, straight out of Fiona's brain.
And the original series is quite heavily based on very comedic banter between all the parents. How did you go about adapting that kind of fast-paced dialogue and comedy to the book?
Well, it was actually great because, when you're doing TV or something that's comedy and it's short form, you don't have a lot of time. You have to be really quick and everything has to be punchy and pacey. So it was a real luxury to be able to just delve more into that world. And even though I would like to think that the scenes in the book between the 3 or 4 characters are still punchy and pacey, you can just go into a bit more detail about what's going on in their heads depending on what character's perspective it's from, and just lengthen those bits of dialogue a little bit more, just let it breathe a bit more. So that was actually really nice.
And it was also, one of the challenges, obviously, in adapting it into a novel, when you write dialogue for the screen, you have a lot of control over the rhythm of that dialogue and how it's delivered and how it's cut together. Whereas writing it for a novel, we had to approach, particularly the dialogue, we had to approach with a very different mindset to make sure we could achieve those sort of similar rhythms on the page without being too prescriptive for how the reader should read it. And
I've always been I love writing dialogue because I've been writing kids' books for quite a few years now, and when I was even at RMIT doing professional writing years ago, the one thing I always loved doing in any writing exercises was dialogue. And so for me, it was just a joy to be able to, script writing and novel writing are obviously very different forms, but it's still the same when it comes to dialogue. You want it to sound believable and natural and have a rhythm to it.
Well, it is very good, even as a person who's not a parent and hasn't stepped foot inside a school for like a decade. Still very relatable, I think.
Oh, that's so good to hear. Thank you.
And that's something that we always wanted to make sure of with the web series as well. You know, we didn't want it to be a sort of niche, parenty, in-jokey sort of thing. We really wanted the drop-off just to be the setting for our characters to express whatever they want to express in whatever way they want to express it. And hopefully that, has reach beyond just parents and teachers and carers, etc.
Well, on that note, in the book, we learn a lot more about the characters of Lizzie, Megan and Sam. How did you go about expanding those characters and their backstories?
Look, I'm a very structured writer.
She's a very structured woman, Max.
I'm a planner. So before writing even one paragraph of prose, I went away on my own to Barwon Heads, that was just referenced in that little bit. I went away to Barwon Heads on my own for 5 days, stayed in a lovely Airbnb and just did lots of planning of each character. I broke down each character and their backstories and what their arc would be in the novel, and what the overall story was that linked all three of them, and then how that would all interweave with each other. So I spent 5 days doing a lot of writing and thinking and planning it all out with, scene cards up on the wall and big pieces of cardboard. And I'm a nerd is basically the answer to that.
Back in the web series, Fiona, you played Lizzie, and Mike, you played Sam. Given that, it's hard to not imagine you two as those characters when you read the book. With that in mind, I was kind of curious how much of those two characters are based off your own personalities and life experiences.
Look, there's a bit in there, obviously. I think our daughter, who's 16, just read it for the first time, like a couple of days ago. And she read it in 2 days, which was nice. That's a compliment in itself.
Not sure that we'd be encouraging any under 18s.
No, just our daughter. But she kept coming out and saying, is this so-and-so? Is this so-and-so? And because obviously she knows very well that those characters are kind of a mix. So there's a lot of me and Lizzie, but then there's other people in Lizzie as well, and the same with Sam. There's a lot of Mike in Sam, but then there's other people that have been thrown in there as well.
Yeah, like, Sam's got quite a sad and broken married life, and I can't particularly relate to that, and I'm not as sad as Sam is a lot of the time, but I'm
not Bridget. Let's just say.
Bridget being the rather nasty piece of work who's Sam's wife.
I know it's a little bit like picking a favourite child, but would you say you have a favourite character out of all of them? Not necessarily even the main characters, anyone from the book?
Oh, I love Ellie. So Ellie is Megan's mum, and she lives in a retirement village and is just having the time of her life. And I love Ellie because Ellie is just full of life and funny and smart and just a woman that I love. And she's based on a couple of people that we know in real life. So, I don't want to pick one of the main characters because that's too hard, but if I could pick another character, I'd probably say Ellie.
Well, I'm going to pick one of the main characters because I don't mind making the hard decisions, Fiona. Lizzie's my favourite. Not because she's supposed, not because of you. I just think, we're in isolation and feeling a bit sentimental, but in the same way that Fiona is very much the heart and soul of our family life, I feel like Lizzie is the heart and soul of the book. I feel like it's sort of her tone and her perspective that gives it the most warmth and the most humour. So Lizzie's, she's a lioness, but she's also an old softie. So I love Lizzie.
And with the character of Rick, who's new in the book, I was curious if he was to appear in the web series or any other sort of screen version of the show, who'd you have to play him?
Ooh,
that's a good question.
Love that question. I don't know why this just instantly popped into my head, and he's not a comedian, but I just immediately thought of David Wenham.
I would probably need to look him up. I do not know him.
Oh, David, okay. You're too young to know David Wenham. He used to be, he's a big Australian actor. Let me think.
My first instinct, and because, you want to keep it realistic, Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, that's really,
absolutely.
That's very realistic.
Yeah.
That's good. No.
Yes. David Quirk. He'd be a good Rick. Great Australian comedian.
Or, we could just go with, let's just say, Stephen Gatesy from Tripod.
We'll just keep mining Tripod for all they're worth.
We'll just keep using our mates.
Well, I wanted to talk a little bit about the collaborative writing process as well, because you two co-wrote the book together as well as the web series. What are the, individual strengths you both bring to the writing process?
Well, with the writing of the web series, I wrote the majority of the first drafts of those scripts, and then, as we do with everything that we write, we just bounce it back and forth. Where we're never in the same room writing together. When it comes to the novel, Fiona did the lion's share of the writing of the first draft, and then as she was cranking out thousands of words, she would just send it to me and I'd take a pass at it, because I don't have the same ability or flair for structure and sort of long-form narrative arcs. I'm much better at just taking a pass at copy and as Fiona likes to say, zinging it up a bit. So I take a joke pass at it.
So Mike's very good at, he can read anything I send him, and I'm, like I said before, I'm all about structure and character arcs and story and getting those right. And then obviously I also like writing prose as well, and dialogue. But Mike is so good he's got a really good joke brain, which I don't have anywhere near as good a joke brain as he does. So, and he's also really good at condensing and editing. If I've rambled on a bit too much, he's good at slashing and just tightening and making it all kind of pop on the page.
Because how long was the first draft?
That was 111,000 words.
So we had to give that a pretty decent trim, and it's, being a married couple who've been together nearly 20 years, there's no mollycoddling, there's no if you want to fight for an idea, you better be ready to fight for it. And often when it came to the editing, I would just send Fiona a gentle text from the other end of the house saying, I'm cutting chapter 17. because I think that's one of the great things about having another set of eyes to send your work to, is that I could recognise maybe more than Fiona could when she was in the eye of the storm cranking out so much material, when character beats were repeated or when story beats were repeated, or when I felt like that had already been said, we'd already discovered that, so let's move on to the next interesting thing for the reader. And
Mike, I think we also complement each other really well in that Mike has a tendency to go really wrong world, and can get quite, politically incorrect, or just goes way beyond what, I would think is acceptable.
It's a gift.
And so he will go there send it to me, and I will just go, no, you've gone too far, and just pull him back. And then in the other way it works, because if I've, not gone far enough, he'll push me to go that much further.
And hopefully we end up finding some good middle ground.
Yeah.
Are there any examples of particular scenes or jokes that were, I guess, cut for being a little bit too on the nose?
Well, look, Sam, because Mike wrote all of Sam's emails, that's totally his voice. And sometimes, let's just say, Sam might have gotten a little bit too dark and a little bit too wrong world. And so there were a few times when I would read Sam's email, a part of Sam's email, and just think, no, that's too depressing, like that's too dark and too depressing. And so just try and pull that back a little bit.
I just thought you were just saying I've got a real gift for joke writing.
On the note of Sam's emails, I actually was curious why you chose to have Sam's story told through emails as opposed to, I guess, regular prose.
From a practical point of view, it was much easier for Fiona to allow me to give Sam that sort of unique voice that I can provide without having to worry too much about how it was going to fit in to the overall narrative arc. Whereas when she, Fiona would give me some very specific directions, like in this email, this is where Sam's at. It's going to come right after that chapter with Megan. And so then I could write it with that in mind. But because Fiona had a much better understanding of the book as a whole, from a practical point of view, it was easier to structure Sam's chapters like that.
And it was also a stylistic choice, because I wanted to have each of those characters have a different style. So obviously Lizzie is in first person, Megan is in third person, and Sam's are emails. And I liked that. I liked having a mix of forms for each of them.
And obviously, people express themselves very differently in an email, and particularly when they're emailing their dearest, oldest friend. It's a very intimate and sort of secret relationship. It's the sort of way you only talk to your best friend.
Like a diary.
When you know no one else is listening and no one else is going to read it. So it's a very particular and it's definitely a very sort of intimate mode of correspondence.
And Mike, since you have previously written for stage and screen, yet if I'm not mistaken, this is your first book. I was curious, I guess, how the experience challenged and was a bit different for you as a writer.
The main thing that I wanted to keep a focus on was knowing that, and it's such a basic tenet of being a novelist, but I had to keep reminding myself that these were not words that were going to be performed. These were not words that I was going to get up on stage and deliver to an audience and hone in that way, or give to other actors to say out loud on screen. This was for readers. And I know that sounds so blatantly obvious, but I really had to keep bashing myself over the head with that to make sure that I was sort of distilling what I think are my best qualities as a writer and just dedicating it to the page. And that was, initially it was really challenging, but after a while, like after a few months, when I managed to grasp that very basic skill of being a novelist, I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it because it felt very, very pure and very final. This wasn't a stand-up routine that you were going to hone over a few weeks and months in different clubs, adjusting the words, adjusting the rhythm, adjusting the delivery. It's like once that's finished, once it's on the page, it's done.
And Fiona, similarly for you, you've also written for stage and screen, but you've also, as you mentioned, written a few books for younger readers. How is the experience of writing a book for adults challenging and different for yourself as a writer?
I loved it. It was kind of my happy place. It was kind of the place I'd been trying to get to for all these years. So, when I started writing professionally, my first job was on, Skid House and Flipside, so sketch comedy, so very short jokes, and that's just not my forte or my happy place. I don't enjoy that. So I did that for quite a few years, and it was a fantastic learning ground for me, but I was never happy doing that because I don't enjoy that sort of writing or stand-up or anything like that. And then over the years, that's when I did the RMIT course, just after all that sketch comedy stuff, and that's where I found my true love, which was writing prose. And
you had fun doing the sketches.
I did. I had an absolute ball.
Because from a writing perspective,
yeah, it was stressful. I loved performing them, didn't so much love writing them. But going to RMIT was life-changing for me, because that's where I found sort of my tribe, my peeps who love reading, because I've always been a massive reader. That's always been my first love, writing and reading.
Don't say peeps.
Shut up. And so, it's been like, since then I've been writing more and more prose stuff, and obviously longer form scripts. So we write a lot of, we've got a lot of pilots and scripts that we've written like that. But compared to writing kids' books, obviously very, very different, but sort of the same when it comes to, you've still got to have engaging characters, and you've got to have a good story and good arcs and all that stuff. So that still applies whether it's kids or adults. And I would never say writing kids stuff is easier. They're very different, but they've both got their challenges, and they've both got their, well, for me, I love both. But the adult novel, obviously, a lot longer, took a lot more time to write and a lot more planning and thought. But, want to keep doing it forever now, basically.
Yeah, it was interesting with how you mentioned Skit House, because that was a show that I watched a lot when I was probably too young to be watching it. I felt like I saw a lot of that kind of same humour from Skit House and Comedy Inc. and stuff like that, both in the web series and the book as well. That kind of irreverent, like, sort of absurd, like, send-up of Australian culture and stuff like that. I feel like The Drop-Off has the same kind of vibe.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, that is mine and Mike's, that is our voice, that is our humour, that's always been who we are, and with our friends, that's how we talk, and that's, what we write. And so that's good to know that tone was there.
And really, I mean, sometimes for us, it's about trying to balance having the courage to put out into the world a conversation that we might have just had with friends that is incredibly wrong, and the sort of thing that would only ever be said behind closed doors. But more often than not, that's what people love to see. So it's that balance of finding the courage to say those things out loud without being horrendously offensive.
Well, with 2 seasons of a web series and now a book out in the world, can we expect to see a little bit more of Lizzie, Megan and Sam anytime soon?
Oh, that's a very good question, Max. I feel like we just need to get through. We're still, like I said, feeling quite nervous because it's not really out there yet. People haven't started reading it, so we're a bit nervous about what the response is going to be. And so once we're sort of through this, then we can clear our heads and go, right, what do we do now? Because we've got other projects that we're working on that are non-drop-off related, but I guess we'll just wait and see what the response is, I guess.
And also the drop-off it's been with us for a long time, and to get the opportunity to write this novel, and even just feeling very grateful to be able to put something creative out into the world, particularly at the moment when so many artists don't have that opportunity, and to be able to sort of put a book that hopefully will give some people some laughs and some warm and fuzzies feels like a real blessing. By the same token, we love the characters and we love the world that we've created. So if the opportunity presented itself, I don't think we'd say no. But by the same token, we also feel like we're ready to move on to the next thing creatively, because we've gotten a lot from the drop-off. It's been an incredible part of our lives and something we're so proud of. Apart from sort of being able to make this creative calling card for, if people want to ask us, so what's the tone of your writing, and the sort of things you often get asked when you're pitching pilots or TV shows. We've now got something we can point to. We can point to the web series, we can point to the book and say that's the voice you're going to get with the two of us.
But I love these characters in this world so much. They feel a big part of our lives, and I have a lot of love for it. So I would never, be happy to say goodbye to them. If it's the gift that keeps on giving, then sure.
Excellent. Well, Fiona and Mike, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks
for having us, Max.
The Drop-Off is published by Echo and is available on our website at goodreadingmagazine.com.au or any good bookshop.